ليس فقط عند الغروب ولكن في كل وقت في كل لحظة إني سأنتظرك على مر الزمن. Tomorrow Everything Will Be Alright is a love story that unfolds through a chat, through an evening chat between two men, taking place on a typewriter instead of a computer screen. So it's not a real chat, it's an almost imagined chat between two former lovers who meet in virtual space and who show desire to meet again. You don't know if this is taking place in someone's head, writing a script, for example, or if it's really this ghostly appearance that actually transforms a typewriter into a chat room. It was meant to commission artists who work with film to produce short films to be screened in movie theaters right before the feature film starts. And I never showed my work in movie theaters, but I have a lot of affection to feature films that I've seen in large movie theaters. So I took it as a challenge to at the same time say something critical about the film industry, but also at the same time give tribute to those love stories that I've seen on big screen. When I was doing the film, I learned that Eric Romer died, and this is why the idea of sunset comes very often in the film. Sunsets are in cheesy films, in love stories, are always like the site of, the sunset is the witness of love stories. And yeah, I wanted to give this specific love story that tone. Like when you were very sad, someone comes to you and tells you, tomorrow everything will be all right, and don't worry, don't cry, things will get better, it cannot be worse than today, things like that. And also give the exhibition that is named after this film also like a positive tone. The film is constructed around this only video shot that I have. So the video shot is almost like a fossil in another body of film. It's a shot that was registered on a mini DV tape that I filmed myself in December 1999. So it's really before the threshold of the new millennium. And witnessing it was supposed to be special, but it wasn't. It was like any other day. It's just an imaginary importance or an imaginary significance. There are 3 love stories in this exhibition. All of them take place in a period of 15 years. All of them end with separation. And all of them happen between 2 men. Rechewing Gum is the first that I made in 2000 with 3 key figures, 3 persons. You see only 2 out of them, and the third is in someone's head. This one is taking place in someone's imagination, I would say, or at least it's taking place in the imagination of film. So it's the same story that is stripped from actors. There's no actors in Tomorrow Everything Will Be Alright. The only actor is the typewriter. The characters are the ones who types in red and the ones who types in black. And you don't know exactly when is this happening. Is this happening in the typewriter time zone, or is this happening in chat time zone? Because it cannot be both, or it is both only when it's imaginary, in other terms. Tomorrow Everything Will Be Alright, Rechewing Gum, and this one, the 3 of them were scripted beforehand. Normally I do not write scripts, but Tomorrow Everything Will Be Alright was written as a script and almost delivered as a script as well. Rechewing Gum was perfectly scripted, and this is the voiceover that you hear in the film, and this one. The difference between it and Rechewing Gum is that Rechewing Gum is taking place clearly in Beirut. You see Beirut, even though indirectly you see it. And the third, let's say, the third film that reenacts the same story is The End of Time. You don't see it in context at all. It's this white vacuum. It takes place in no space, almost an imaginary space, almost like a fable, like an iconic love story of falling in love and separation. Rechewing Gum is also based on a specific obsession of chewing a gum after someone else has chewed it. It's like a childhood, also a childhood perverse game. And I wanted to set it in a love relationship. So I displaced this play, this game, into like an adult situation. Within this love story, there's obviously a power issue in the couple. One forces the other to do things. In a way, like Tomorrow Everything Will Be All Right as well. There's a power issue that is implicit in the dialogue. Rechewing Gum was commissioned in Hamra and about Hamra district. It's a letter addressed to another time, about moving within the city from place to another. Because Hamra, as a district, you cannot observe Hamra without thinking about the element of time. Because Hamra changed from being the Champs-Élysées of Beirut, like this upscale commercial district in the 60s and early 70s. And after the war, when the city lost its city center, Hamra became an alternative city center, and then in the 90s it's also changed in a different way. So in 2000, when I made this film, it was addressing the issue of commerce and the issue of urban changes in the city, and I wanted to set this love story within that urban change.
يجعل المشاهد التي صورتها من غير زمن خارج الزمن. ربما لم يكن ذلك منذ 15 عاما، مسألة باتت بغير أهمية. ورحنا نبحث معا عمن يلعب دور.
Rechewing Gum is one of the first pieces that I filmed myself, because I had this new mini DV camera that I had bought, which brought me back to filming. The first thing that I've done is I wrote this text that is addressed by a lover to a former lover. So there's also this issue of 15 years. I don't know where this 15 years came from, but I don't know why in many pieces the idea of 15 years comes back. But this is almost 15 years ago, actually, from today. The End of Time is a dance or a choreography written or scripted for two lovers, but there are three characters that perform the two lovers. So the first falls in love with the second leaves the first and falls in love with the third leaves the second and falls in love with the first. And so it becomes like a cycle, like a loop, perfect loop. This is one of the pieces, one of the few pieces in my work that was entirely scripted. All the gestures are scripted. So to give you an idea of, for example, it was shot in one day with no sound. The sound was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it has a foot in film because I'm struck with this scene from a French film called La Femme d'à côté with Fanny Ardant and Gérard Depardieu. She falls in love with him and he falls in love with her, and he comes forward and kisses her. So she falls on the floor, or she loses consciousness. And I like that idea of like falling, literally falling in love and falling on the ground. It's called The End of Time because I always wonder what is the end of time and what comes after the end, and if the end is really the end or there's something else after the end. It's also about the preservation of something that is very ephemeral, like love and desire. You don't know how to catch it, and when you fall in love, you want to catch it and stay with it forever. And I'm also interested in preservation through reenactment, like Another Resolution, for example. So I'm interested in the thin line that makes a document becomes a performance for the sake of preserving it. Another Resolution is the first installation with video I made in 1998. I took pictures in order to make a little book. The book shows the original pictures and reenacted pictures, but in the installation you only saw the videos. So you only see these men and women posing still, standing still in front of the camera while time is passing, and they're forced to do it for 7 minutes or 8 minutes each. And what you see in the exhibition is those little projections that look like projected slides, but in fact when you come close they are videos. So you see the subjects a little bit struggling to maintain the pose. All the poses that you see in Another Resolution are derived from photographs of children, old photographs of children, taken often by parents or by commercial photographers. And the poses have something, allude to some erotic pose. So what I try to do is to reenact the same poses by adults, men and women. And I'm trying to see the limits of acceptable behavior, at which point a child becomes an adult. And also I was trying to see what is permitted or accepted for men that is not accepted for women, or vice versa. I was playing with the different codes of that we encode pictures with, constructing gender as well. It was produced as two screens facing each other, where the two screens show the same posture, once enacted by a man, once enacted by a woman, facing one another, and both equal in duration. in 1998, you have to wait for 35 minutes to see all the different characters one after the other. But nowadays, you just need to look at them. Like in one glance, you see all of them, and you get the idea. So you don't need to stay in front of them for long. And also, because they are similar projectors, and because they are all like these rounded vignettes, I use them often to create a rhythm in the space, and they become more like an architectural feature in the space. Dance to the End of Love is a work that I made in 2010, 2011. And it's a culmination of a research that I did on YouTube of specific profiles of people living in different Arab countries, filming themselves, YouTubers filming themselves and uploading those short clips on YouTube. So indirectly, they are self-representations. They are people who are proud or happy of what they are doing, and they would like to share this representation of themselves with a larger public. In the dance piece, you see basically men. Very few women are present, and very few women actually film themselves and upload their images on YouTube in the Arab world. Dance to the End of Love was conceived as a 4-channel installation. And it was meant to be huge screens, 3 by 4 meters. So you see the people almost at scale, 1-to-1. So the people dancing are as big as you as an audience. And images travel from, or songs travel from one screen onto another. They are all synchronized. So it's like, this is why I call it a choreography or a dance, on which you see so many rushes of so many people coming from Egypt, Libya, the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, doing strange things, crazy things, but also banal things. For example, I'm fascinated by close-ups of speed meters in cars, for example. Why do people take their cell phone and take a video of the speed meter in a car going from 0 to 120 in 10 seconds, for example? So it's like it becomes like a competition. Who did it first, and why did this appeal to a second person, and why did this appeal to a third and fourth, and why do you find 20 or 30 of them on the internet? It's those instances that I was seeking to highlight, because then they acquired already a significance, a cultural significance. They are organized in 5 different chapters according to similar patterns. For example, men riding motorcycles, people singing or dancing, people having fun, but definitely people who are very solitary. Looks like they are very solitary at home. Maybe this is why the piece is called Dancing to the End of Love. It's a way celebration of loneliness, facing devices, computer or mobile devices. Beirut Exploded Views was developed for a specific site in Beirut, which they call the sample mock-up land, which is simply a location where the city or the company that is managing the real estate in the downtown area forces contractors to build a one-floor wall. So it's one wall that represents every building that is produced one-to-one, so it's real scale, which means there is this piece of land that looks like a forest of different walls coming from different buildings. There's absolutely no order. They are placed randomly. And I imagined the narrative of Beirut Exploded Views to fit this location. So when I went several times to the site, I took pictures and I tried to identify 4 paths for the camera to take. So they are like 4 different axes, and I identify them in the film as north, west, east, south. So the film looks at this site from those 4 angles, and each time I try to follow a path, like put the camera on a path, on a track, either looking forward or looking side to the side. And at the same time, while depicting the architecture of the place, I also capture parts of the narrative. So the place is broken up. It's like an exploded view of a location. But at the same time, while depicting the location, you also depict fragments of narrative. So the story is broken up as much as the location is broken up. All the characters look like waiting because nothing is happening. They are killing time, in other terms. You don't know exactly what they are waiting for, but everything seems to be in suspension in the 4 tracks, actually. The suspension is the reality of all refugees, I think, of conflicts. The Palestinian refugees came to Lebanon in 1948, and they're still waiting to go back. And many of them, many of those who settled in Lebanon died, and now their kids are also waiting and thinking that one day they will return. We never know if the Syrian refugees in Lebanon nowadays will ever be able to return or not. So conflicts seem to be taking too long to be resolved. So the larger context is the context of refugees coming to live in a slightly hostile place, a city that is already not. It's not sure that if this is an incomplete city or if this is a city that is post-war. So if it's a broken up city or if this is an unfinished construction. And this is left abstract until the end of the film, where you see everything from the sky, and you probably realize that this is an awkward place. It looks like an archaeological site, actually. So in the film there are a few men walking around. You don't know exactly the specifics of the narrative, but it looks like people are trying to make home in this context.